visitor center is right there at the top of the canyon. We came down on the elevator about 500 feet into the canyon, got off the elevator right there, walked up the tunnel just now, and that's where we now are. We're in one of these 4 large diversion tunnels, these things are called, standing over that large pipe you were just looking at. Now that large pipe out there, well, it obviously runs right underneath this room, and it's full of water right now. It's carrying the water from Lake Mead, which is out in that direction. That water is being delivered through that water-carrying pipe right now to the big generators to turn the turbines to help make electricity. The pipe, by the way, has a name. It's called a penstock pipe, and we're going to show you the generators next on your tour, as I said. Now, this canyon where the dam is located today also has a name. This is Black Canyon, where we're standing right now, but this really wasn't the first choice of where they wanted to build it. They actually wanted to build this dam 20 miles upriver from here at a location called Boulder Canyon. But for a number of reasons, that was unsuitable. They just changed their mind, brought the project here. One of the reasons for that move here was the height of the canyon walls here. As it turns out, they could build a much taller dam here than they could up there, and that was kind of important because that would allow them a much bigger reservoir behind the dam eventually, and today, of course, we call that large reservoir Lake Mead. Once they had this site determined here, they realized, well, another problem. Got to deal with this before we can actually start building the dam out there. And the problem involved the river, the Colorado River. And the question at the time was, what were they going to do with it while they built the dam? Because the Colorado River at that time had a reputation. It was supposed to be one of the most dangerous rivers in the whole world. It was very, very unpredictable. It was hard to tell what it was going to do. Well, it flows right through the canyon here, so it would tend to get in the way what to do with it. Well, what they, of course, decided to do with the river was to simply divert it through 4 huge diversion tunnels, they're called, in the canyon walls. We happen to be standing right in the middle of one of those. You know, it took them 40% of the construction time just working on these tunnels. That's 2 years of the final 5-year building period. Very labor intensive. Each one 4,000 feet long, 56 feet in diameter. And then, because they knew the tunnels would eventually be used for that pipe out there, to stabilize the tunnels, they decided to line each one with 3 feet of concrete, which you can see the original lining nicely above your head. Now, at that point, they were doing a little thinking here, because then they went ahead and made use of all the dirt, rock, and rubble from these tunnels to create 2 temporary dams out of it called coffer dams. Those were put in place to isolate the construction area, one on each side. The upper coffer dam, about 100 feet tall, and then half a mile downriver was the lower coffer dam. Once those were in place, they could then move on to the next step, and this is probably one of the hardest ones, by the way, when they had to physically force that Colorado River out there off its natural path to go through these 4 tunnels, exiting downriver here. And once they had that accomplished, only then could they start building the dam. It was a long process to get to that point. That happened, by the way, on June the 6th, 1933 at exactly 11:20 that morning. They know it was that exact moment because they took the time to photograph that historic first bucket of concrete out there. Now, the first bucket arrived, followed 78 seconds after that by the second one, and you know, folks, from that moment on, that pace continued. From then on, every 78 seconds, another bucket of concrete arrived on site. That went on from that day forward, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for about 2 straight years until Hoover Dam was finished. And when it was, the tallest dam in the whole world, sitting right there on the Colorado River. Now, once they had the dam finished and sitting there and doing its job, they found they didn't really need the first part of these tunnels that they spent all that time on. That's everything in this gold color here kind of outlived its function. So, to stop the flow of the water, they decided to put these concrete plugs on the tunnels. So there are the plugs, the 4 of them, and once the plugs were installed, that was to allow them to start using some water to begin filling up Lake Mead out there. Lake Mead is the largest man-made lake in the United States. It holds about 9 trillion gallons of water. It took 6.5 years to fill it. There's that much water in that lake. Now, in the last year of filling Lake Mead, which was 1941, they allowed the lake that year to fill and then overfill, and they did that for a reason. Everything they did around here was for a reason. And the reason they did that is they were testing the spillway to make sure it would work by doing that. Now, the spillway is a drain. If the lake is ever getting too full, which happens, I'll give you an example of that in a moment, they don't want the water to go over the top of the dam, but they do want it to go over the edges, those drains, and when that happens, it just comes out here at the end without hurting anything, just like a drain. And the only year in the 78-year history of this dam we ever had to use the spillway was 1983. Some of you might have noticed already this interesting photograph over here on the wall. That's 1983 that you're looking at right there, and as you can see, there's so much water in the lake that year, it was going over the spillways, as shown right there, for about 2 months that was going on. It was spectacular if you had a chance to be here that year, but once again, very rare, one time in 78 years, and that's it. And I wouldn't look for that to be happening again in the near future. Did you get a chance to look at the lake out there today? The low, okay, that lake is about half full today. Very serious problem. We're in the middle of a drought. We've been going through this for we're not in the middle of it, we're at the end of it. We've been going through this for 15 years, and the result of that drought is what you see in the lake today, and as I said, it is a very serious problem. So stay tuned. One final thing here, folks, before we move on to show you the big generators, and I'll explain how we make electricity here, but that is the fact that even though the lake is half full, there's still a lot of water out there. There's still 4 trillion gallons of water in that lake, but it's not really needed in the lake, is it? It's needed by the generators over here to make electricity. How do we get it there? There's a big dam in the way, right? Well, we do that through these 4 large towers you might have noticed out there on the lake called intake towers. Now, as I'm speaking to you right now, water from Lake Mead is falling into openings at the bottoms of those 4 towers on the lake. That water is flowing downward through the pipe system. We're standing over part of that system right now, and that water is actually passing beneath our feet from the lake at the rate of 96,000 gallons of water every second. And that water is on its way to where we're going, which would be, as I said, the generator room. Now, we do have to get back on the elevator to show the generators to you. A little reminder here, folks. We've got kind of a large group here, but 2 elevators to get us there. So I'm going to go first. I'll be counting off half of this into that first elevator. So what that means is you need to stay together with your family and friends in line so I can get you on the same elevator, okay? But let me go first. Thank you.